wants to revoke the consent of the live stream at any point of the debate, certainly you're welcome to do so at any point of the debate as well. Just let me know in the chat, and more than happy to relay that to the outcome. Great. So I think we're good to go unless anyone have any questions. If not, once again, wishing everyone the best of luck. May this be a fantastic debate. Under the motion that reads, this House would ban research into the creation of artificial general intelligence. Prime Minister to open the debate, please. Here. I'll be turning off my video in a bit. Really bad internet connection from my side, but if anyone wants to use video, feel free to do so. Okay, go ahead, Prime Minister.
Hello, am I audible? Okay. So I think this is something that I missed out, but I consent to be streamed. I don't know with my partner as well because I entered late in this debate. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Okay. I'm so sorry for that delay. I hope I'm still audible. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Two things I'm going to do in this debate. First, I'm going to give the fiat or the clarifications that I'm going to do that will be transparent in this debate. The second is that I'm going to give the substantives, and the third is that I'm going to give the trade-off. But first, for clarifications, the first is that you have to give the opening government or the government bench in general the fiat, given that we're debating about the motion on whether we're supporting or we propose this we ban rather this research of creation of this artificial general intelligence. Hence, you have to give the opening government the fiat given the central premise that, of course, given the primary intention of this research is to ensure that it is going to translate into real life impact, real world impact in our society, and of course, like, this debate is going to be an assessment of whether the impacts that is brought forth by this research into creating artificial intelligence is something that is going to benefit the society or as a human civilization in the future. But the second is that it's very important to contextualize that when we're talking about the creation of artificial general intelligence, it's worth noting that when we're pursuing research, the main intention of the scientists or whether who are the people behind who are behind such research is to first to advance the scientific or the body of knowledge in general, and second is that we're going to ensure that, of course, we're going to advance as a society as a whole, while ensuring that we're going to mitigate the harms. However, on our side, the opening government will start by contending to you, like, how is it that how is it on our world, like, on both worlds rather, the harms are far greater than the benefits that what the government the opposition rather is going to propose on their side. Hence, and hence we strongly support in banning this creation of this research in general, in the first place. So two substantives. The first is that in the world that we're leading right now, we're already leading into automation into automation, and the fact is that we're already leading with the displacements of jobs that is happening in the first place. The fact that remote jobs are already displaced, especially in developed countries, wherein what is happening is that, like, especially when you're going to characterize businesses as something that is profit centered in general, your goal is to really minimize the production cost or the operation cost in general, and of course, when you're going to utilize humans in general, wherein they require pension or protect or even like other expenses or other benefits in general, this is something that's going to be costly. Given this trend that is happening in the status quo right now, when you're going to pursue an artificial general intelligence, not only are you going to you're going to displace like remote jobs that is happening right now, but more importantly, you are going to displace like those high skill jobs that require like higher mental faculty, such as teaching in general, or even like those engineers, or even doctors in general. Why is it true? First, when we're dealing in when we're dealing in status quo, wherein we're still in the aftermath of recessions, and of course, of course, when larger institutions are preparing themselves, to ensure that should there be a future recessions that is happening in the future, what they want to do is to reduce their manpower in general, and that's the reason, and that's the reason why, they're going to resort to this artificial intelligence. Why is it so? First, even if the opposition contests that the capital is much higher when it comes to requiring this artificial intelligence, the fact that the return of investment is much going to be stronger, because of course, the fact that humans don't suffer, the fact that this when we're going to create something artificial intelligence, when they're going to create like something, it's not even like necessarily like robots in general, like that system can just be in the form of a screen in general, or something that you watch in TV in general, or in a television in general. So as you can see, when you're going to utilize this, like these artificial intelligence don't suffer from burnout, don't need breaks in general, and of course they can tend to be omnipresent. This is something that they can utilize as well, especially so of course, like they don't need to repeat the same thing over and over again, and of course, when their goal is to increase efficiency in general. But second, the world that we're dealing right now, in the capitalistic world that we're dealing right now, like the fact that we're putting ourselves, like a society, in a machine where we're pursuing for the best of the best, we're pursuing for excellence in general, it is very likely that not only for entertainment industries, they are more likely to favor this artificial intelligence in general moreover than humans, because this artificial intelligence are able to learn and understand more, and be able to pursue more knowledge at a way faster rate than us. The fact that they are able to store much more knowledge than us humans right now, given the human brains that we have right now, the artificial intelligence is going to far outpace us in the future, should this research should exist in the first place. Why is it so? Because first, again, like a society, we're favoring the best of the best, like when it comes to sports in general, or when it comes to whatever pursuit, we want the best of the best. We want these superhuman abilities where they can wherein they can win every game that they pursue in general. And secondly, when it comes to entertainment industry as well, for example, when it comes to singers, or for example, when this artificial intelligence has the capacity to be novel enough, be creative enough to write songs, to produce songs in general, this is something that a lot of companies can benefit with. Again, especially when you're going to highlight that these companies are profit centered and are profit centered in general. But before six, CO.
Okay, do you think that people would rather want to interact with artificial intelligence, or with a living human?
First, even if you're going to contend on your side that at our worst case, they're going to find themselves alienated. I don't think that this is not going to be the case, because first, these companies are going to find ways, like in terms of advertising, in order to ensure that artificial intelligence is something that is going to be embraced by the people. But second, as what I've already mentioned, we as humans we are pursuing for excellence in general. We are so hyped or obsessed with pursuing, in reaching those top 0.1% in general. But thirdly, and going to the trade-off, if when it comes to the first one is that when we're going to pursue like scientific knowledge in general, this is something that is going to exist on our side, given that of course you honor the fiat of the opening government as well, that when we're going to pursue by overcoming the bureaucracy that's happening in the government in general, like of course, like when the goal is really about scientific knowledge in general. But thirdly, just a very last quick substantive, it's very important for the opposition to recognize how this artificial intelligence, when they become into fruition, this is something that they can utilize as well in three ways. First, a lot of certain fact that when this is something that's going to be released in the public, like a lot of people are going to aim for it and reverse engineer it, and something that they can make on their own. This is something that can be weaponized as well. Second, in politics, when these countries, of course, these developed countries, this is going to be a status symbols as well in pushing through whether these countries have more power when it comes to advancing artificial intelligence in general. And thirdly, it's going to highlight the increasing income inequality due to this is something that the elites is taking prey by something that we don't know. So of course, this artificial intelligence, the fact that they learn that they learn much more than us, these elites and more powerful will take advantage of the fact that they know more something than us. Very proud to open the case of opening government.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for those fine remarks. To open opposition's case in this debate, Leader of Opposition, please. Here.
Okay, just a second. I will turn on my camera.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm starting in 1, 2, 3. Panel, see that most of the open government's case goes to how it affects society in a way. We do believe it affects society in a way, but in a better way than they assume it's going to be. First of all, they say that machines won't suffer from burnout, won't suffer from any kind of thing. Actually, this is good because they can be more productive, and the people who were suffering from burnout now being replaced won't be suffering from it anymore. And I'm going to say that they have an alternative that is still going to happen. And you say it outpasses us, it's more likely that we actually expand the boundaries of intellectual limitation when we talk to these machines and we learn something from them, and the same happens than the other way around. So let's see, the framing of this debate is how globalization actually creates more crises because people are connected. Like a crisis in Iran goes and impacts in the United States, Brazil, or any other country in everywhere in the world. So we're talking about more health crises like COVID-19, economic crises because everything is connected, and most of all, we need better decision makings to solve this crisis. That's why it's extremely relevant we do not ban this kind of research. And second of all, we're talking about most affected areas. Areas of hard sciences are way more affected by these than the subjective areas like songs or anything that the art that opening governments tries to state. Because creativity is subjective, and in more chances that humans still have a huge competitive point against them. So first, science always get new discoveries. In the sense that when you're talking about science, you're not, even if we do not discover our latest end, the objective, the goal we have, it always goes sideways, side effects, or halfway. You can discover things that will have other areas of humanity. For example, when you're researching for a new product, a new like a technology for rockets, you can use it for example then in healthcare or health or any of these areas. So these discoveries you make halfway are still going to be used. And when we ban this kind of research, we are banning the things that we may discover when we're pursuing this goal. And this actually takes away the capacity of increasing productivity in many areas in human life, and sometimes enhancement of quality of human life in this scenario. Now we go for more specifics. First of all, we get a huge amount of enhancement in the medicine area. We get faster and more accurate diagnosis. How it's faster? Because these machines, they have machine learning. They can identify through many different situations or what goes like a pattern or something. They can identify get a way more data way quicker than any other human being. So this goes that we need less resources to attend more people. And you see, when we're talking about more affected people, we're talking about, like, for example, universal care systems of government. When you're talking that you can make more people to actually have this kind of services, to more people to get this kind of things, it's cheaper because now you need less resources for making it to happen. So more people can be affected, more people can be included in this kind of systems, and this makes it more affordable, and the taxpayer monies can be used to more areas and enhance human lives. Second area, engineering. In engineering, you can put more inputs in these machines that they get to use better resources. You can say, like, we need to enhance productivity in this side or in this size and in this side, and you can actually increase its productivity in this way because you're using resources more intelligently. Like you use when you lack of some kind of material or commodity, you mean any kind of thing, they can in advance look at it and know how it's going to affect because they have way more better material, like in terms of mathematical calculation, in terms of logistics. They can think way more faster and with way less mistakes because they have more data together. And second reason why is because they make less mistakes. As the European government stated, they do not burn out, they do not get tired, so they can keep on doing that instead of stopping. So when these measures like medicine or engineering are urgent, we have way quicker access to these goods, these services, than if we have human beings that actually take vacations and are tired or any kind of this thing that may affect that. And now humans who may have more free time, as I'll say, as I will state later. And the counterfactual is that you actually do not get these kind of fast growing process in science, and you get more mistakes because of the reasons I said so. And in more productivity, you can focus on more areas. Now, government as a whole may state that we are going to lose jobs, but we're talking about intellectual activity. Now, we are living the era of automation, and poor people are being replaced by mechanical robots or mechanical robots or any kind of thing. So their jobs are already being replaced, and we're now making the global north, more effective than the global south, in a sense that they are the ones that have the wealth, the power, the media, the lobby, for example, to go into Congress and make some kind of measures to pass in terms of, for example, two impacts, more policies in terms of income. You can get more basic or universal income for people, so they do not riot against the system, so they do not not lose their dignity in this way of not having jobs or any kind of things. So this global wealth now have more incentives to make poor people happier in terms of income, and they can actually push harder this kind of policy, as I told you. And second of all, it creates new kinds of jobs. It's like the whole government can say, oh no, we're losing jobs, but in this process, the intelligence or the artificial intelligence actually creates new posts. I'm taking a closing government if they have some. Opening government? No, okay, I'm proceeding. So when you create these new kind of jobs, actually you have these elite, this global elite to continue to pursue, to create new jobs, and these new jobs may affect new areas and enhance economy. You can find new areas that weren't being used in some sense, and now you can actually gather more income or tax or resources for people for new areas that weren't being how to say used or forgot the word in English, sorry. But in this way, these elites are affected, so they have these incentives to keep on maintaining this looking for solutions for this problem. They are being replaced, so they do not want to lose their income, or they do not want to lose the support that they may have for people. So they have these incentives to keep on pursuing that. And for that, we know that you state that they won't lose these jobs or anything, and even if they lose, they have other opportunities to get it. For these reasons, we're proud to oppose. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Leader of Opposition, for those fine remarks. To continue opening government's claims in this debate, DPN, please. Hear him.
everyone, can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. OG said that in their side of the house, they still have AI, but they're willing to be late on this kind of research. But think of that. If we ban research nowadays, it makes it impossible for the current AI existing to actually advance. And OG did not accept the burden that if we do stop this research on AI, we're actually going to lose many of the impacts that we have not achieved yet, because the impacts we have nowadays with AI are far smaller than the ones that we can actually have in the future. So first, points of rebuttal to OG's case. They talk about displacement of jobs. First of all, the AIs, they have an exponential learning curve, so the more it assimilates, easier to assimilate even more. This way, AI can be used to actually create new fields of science and technology that are not yet discovered. The same way, for example, in recent 10 years, quantum computers were recently created, and therefore new job places were also created. When AI is able to actually expand technology to new areas, it's intuitive to think it will also help creating more jobs, and I'll address more economic impacts in the end. Second, nowadays, most manpower is focused on physical tasks, not intellectual tasks, such as operating equipment in factories or providing services. People who operate equipment in factories will not lose their jobs to AI, they will lose jobs to automation, which will happen in both sides of the house, so this is not comparative. The process of displacing jobs is caused mainly by this physical automation, not intellectual automation, so this is not the main point in this debate. They talked about how it would accelerate automation, but this is not true. Why? Because when we have the development of AI, we can give more focusing on reducing costs on the intellectual side, the strategical side. And the people who realize this kind of job, who has this kind of job, is usually different from the people who have those physical repetitive jobs. So the moment that industry and companies in general, they realize they have a way to reducing those costs, focusing on the intellectual area and not only in the physical area, they will start giving even more money, for example, and focusing on developing more the AI to actually, even if we think about reducing this manpower focus on those strategic and intellectual jobs, they will also give less focus to accelerating automation to reduce those physical repetitive jobs, because this is something that we already have, and there is a lot of research already focused on that. So it's not true to believe actually that AI will incentivize the development of automation. It's actually the opposite, because when we have the rise of AI, it's a lot easier, and people have more incentives to put more money in that and to actually focus on automating the intellectual tasks, not only the physical tasks. So people who have physical tasks will, if automation rises, will end up losing their jobs on both sides of the house, but AI will not take most of the jobs. They said how it would create more social inequality, for example, even though they didn't provide enough analysis on that. Even if it does generate more profit for developed countries, that's not necessarily bad. Why? Because at the same time, AI is able to improve life conditions for the poorest population, and here is like my constructive argumentation. Because first, when we are expanding scientific and technological barrier, we are also able to develop new ways to provide cheap and clean water. We are able to find new ways to reduce climate change, for example, discover new sustainable fuels. Because nowadays, the biggest barriers that we have, for example, is money and resources and time, because it is expensive to invest in scientific research in general, and humans many times don't have enough time for processing capacity for that. But when we have the development of AI, our scientific area and technological area in general will have a much more enhanced data processing capacity, for example, and also they are able to emulate human creativity. So AI is also able to generate new ideas, for example, that many times were not thought before by humans. So they are able to also expand our technology side, being used, for example, to help reducing climate change, to help addressing sustainability issues, also finding cheap, clean water. And also the economic benefits we can bring will also be positive and will also generate gains for this population. Because first of all, when we're able to minimize production costs, we're able to also reduce the final price of the product. So we're able to get a higher consumer market, for example. And it would be good because when we talk about industrialized product in general, many countries in the world and a huge part of the population do not have access to that due to its high price. But when we're able to reduce this production costs, first, even if shareholders decide to keep their money for themselves, they have more to actually invest in expanding their business and actually creating more job opportunities and actually creating more economic activity. And second, if they actually lower the prices, they're making more people able to actually get access to those kind of industrialized products. And second, we also have the economic impact of being more stable because we're less dependent of human force and human nature when talking about thinking. Because they said that usually machines don't suffer from burnout, they don't suffer from depression. Yes, it's good because they are able to work a lot more than usually people do. So they're also able, they have more time for that. So they're able to make new discoveries, and they're able to reach more goals. For example, usually nowadays, most companies, they actually need to have consumer market that actually have money to do that. So it's of the interest of the companies that they actually are going to lower their prices a little so that more people can access, because they need the population and society in general to have enough wage to buy for their product. So in order to expand their production, for example, they need the rest of society to be able to buy it. So they're not interested in making those products inaccessible. I'll take CG.
Given that you can see that it's expensive to invest in this, and assuming that the technology is created, who is going to be the first to get access to use this freely as they wish?
Okay. Even if we think that the first ones are going to be people and companies or states from developed countries, those places being able to actually reduce their production costs, for example, and making more scientific development, we have to believe that even if it is on a medium term, those kind of impacts will reach population in general, because they need their consumer markets to actually have the money to buy it. And if they want to expand their business, they actually need to think somehow that their products are actually affordable. And in the end, the positive impacts the AI brings us on, for example, reducing human error, on science, on technology, they're not able to be achieved by any other mean, because human and other machines don't have the same data processing capacity. They not consider as many inputs in their decisions. They do not have this exponential learning curve. And the emergent AI that already exists, for example, is not enough to actually bring all the impacts that we have on our side. This is why we're very proud to oppose the motion.
Great. Thank you very much, Diallo, for those final remarks, which ends the opening half of this debate. To begin the closing half, member of government, please. Hear her.
Okay. All right. Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Here.
All right. Then let's start. 3, 2, 1. We believe that that's the thing that both government bench and opposition bench are going to agree on here, is that it's likely that this IGIs are going to be created eventually, right? That there's at least a high possibility that they're eventually going to be created. Basically, the entire OGs and OOS case is going to rest on, and we believe that because of global competition, it's likely going to be funded on sides of global corporations and very rich people to actually make sure that this is going to be made to not give an edge for their opponents, right? Okay, so because of this, we believe that there's basically two things that the OOS case is based on. Firstly, better decisions, and secondly, more automation, which is inherently good, right? Firstly, we believe that even though they say, oh, this is better decision making because we have more ideas, that they do not show why good ideas are enough to actually solve global crises. Considering that we believe that it is that in oppositions are likely to claim that these machines are going to have decision-making rights, so they're actually going to push decisions. The good ideas are not enough, right? Paris Agreement is a good idea to solve climate change, but a good idea is not enough because it cannot force people to actually push change and to actually make them change. Secondly, on their ideas of productivity, right? We believe that they're going to be when you talk about productivity, neural networks are going to be a bit less good than AGIs, but good enough to actually increase productivity by a large margin without having the harms that we're going to bring you in our extension. Okay, so in our extension, we want to talk about how this has a huge potential to go wrong, and when it does go wrong, why it's going to be extremely bad. Firstly, see it not going wrong, but going as intended, right? Firstly, OU concedes that it takes a large amount of funding to actually take this, and they concede that it's going to be concentrated in rich populations, right? So considering that the super rich are going to be the first people to actually invest this, right? This is going to be your Musks and your Bezoses, right? They're going to be investing this. They are the first people who want to make this happen. They want a return on their investment, right? They want free use over this AI and over this technology, right? Because they have an incentive to profit off of this and to return of their investment, they're likely to be using it in a way that is going to be actively detrimental to the large population, right? For it's going to be a lot of data mining, right? You can create fake accounts. You can pass a captcha that is basically our last line of defense of actually saying what's human and what's a robot, right? You can fake user numbers to try and blow up your stock prices. You can fold call realistically. You can falsely claim accounts to spite competition. You can subvert user privacy under the guise of actual human connection, which is currently being viewed as something of a safe space because you're talking to an actual human and that is affiliated with the company and there's affiliated with somebody and is unlikely to try and trick you in the same sense that a malicious program could do, because you can see through malicious programs. It's much harder to see through malicious people, right? So because of this, we believe that the intended use of this is already going to be very bad. But moving on from this, in the status quo, right? A couple of years ago, the US government found an iPhone of a terrorist, and they wanted to get into it because they thought that he might have useful information with text with other terrorists and such, right? They go to Apple and they say, oh, give us a backdoor to this. Apple refuses. Apple refuses even when they are sued by the US government and there's for exorbitant amounts of money to create this, and it's ruled that they don't have to make this. Why do they refuse to do this, right? Because they could probably profit off of this, because creating such a program creates a precedent, right? Once it is created, it is impossible to uncreate it. There is data there is a way for this to actually be misused. All right. Moving on to a bit of characterization how this AGI actually works. It is inherently self-upgrading, right? It is inherently self-changing. To be able to be conceptualized human thought, it necessarily has to adapt constantly through its own thoughts, right? In the status quo, we have some semblance of a self-upgrading machines when you have like YouTube algorithm, right? They constantly adapt. When you have this simple self-upgrading machine, a human is basically unable to actually reach in and see how it works because it's self-upgrading. It creates its own self, and it constantly adapt to the situation it is in. The human that created the machine does no longer have an insight to how the wires are actually connected to what impulse leads where. Considering that this is on a much larger scale and this is basically reaching levels of sentience, we have no insight to its true motivation, right? We cannot stop it in time if it intentionally or unintentionally does something wrong or starts doing something wrong. And it has the capacity to do many things wrong, so that it has a grasp of technology that is likely to quickly exceed any type of human perception that could be created, right? And it has the possibility to procreate infinitely to create as many copies of it as it wants, right? Secondly, we believe that the internet is going to go crazy over this. Every hacker and their mothers are going to try and get their grubby little hands on this. And as has been shown through time and time again, no system is foolproof. Hackers manage eventually. The Pentagon has been hacked multiple times. Everything gets hacked eventually because a million brains working day and night throughout the world eventually overpower the best ideas that you might have when creating a security algorithm. And that is also disregarding a malicious intent from the inside, right? If the internet gets control of this and eventually they get access to this code, right, it is identity theft galore. You can pass captures, you can fool people, all the things we talked about, right? You can create that because you can use it maliciously on a billion different ways. Even if the internet is somehow not as competent and malicious to using this for bad purposes, internet passively ruins advanced AIs. When Amazon created its thinking Twitter AI, the internet basically turned it into a neo-Nazi in about a week's time, right? It has been taken offline because the internet is a constantly feeding mass of bad information for the memes and for the haha, let's try and make this algorithm be a Nazi, right? This is because this computer is going to get constant input from the entirety of the internet. Once it gets online, it's going to eventually passively become bad. I'll take a point from closing if you have one.
Okay, back to the big corporation and monopolies. Actually, both these corporations are like the tech companies, and right now in the United States, both the Democrats and both the Republicans want to break up these big tech companies. So why they would monopolize it?
Great. They want to break up tech companies, even if that were true, and I don't know if this is true. That's not going to happen. Nobody's breaking up Amazon, and unless you can prove that Amazon is going to get broken up and Bezos isn't going to be grabbing their hands on this, your extension doesn't make sense. Secondly, even if you do actually make this, manage to make this, your opening is based on the idea that this takes a lot of funding. So you have to show that somebody is going to give in this funding, and that person is going to get access to this. Secondly, we also believe that on the point of the hackers and the internet and people using this, right? You only have to get this big program once, and then you have the possibility to streamline this and run this to home machines, right? The NASA space modules, which were literally used to send man to the moon, can now be run in Microsoft fucking Paint, because people have a great possibility to take complex data and try to make it shorter, try to make it more efficient, try to make it better. So eventually, with the rise of technology, with the rise of this, people are going to be running this in their home machines. People are going to be running this in ways that could be malicious. If this is created, if such a data that can mimic human creation, it mimic human interaction, mimic human comprehensions to this higher level, it is eventually going to be the most damaging thing that could happen to an online environment. For all of these reasons, we're proud to propose.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Member of Government, for those fine remarks. To open closing opposition's case in this debate, Member of Opposition, please. Here.
Okay, please, I would like PO's eyes in the chat, and if I don't take any by like 5:55, then just shout it at me. Okay. Dear panel, dear panel, the side of government is basically trying to depict you that everything will that the AI will be only in hands of the corporations and that everything will go wrong. But we can see that every time when we have innovations, we have deaths. But then the policymakers decide some regulations to actually regulate it and to actually use in order to be only used in the good way. So in my speech, I will firstly explain rebuttal the side of the closing government, then the opening government, and then I will introduce my own extension about the growth. So firstly, to the corporations, how they would use it, how they would monopolize it, and also monopolize it. Firstly, we believe that if it is really unlikely that this technology would be misused either by corporations or either by private people. Why is it so? Because we can still have policies that would all regulate it. And why are policies that would regulate these things that would, for example, ban monopolization of this data, or for example, even provide UBI and other things? Why are they likely to be created? Firstly, we can see that every time where there is some risk that simply quality of life of most of voters would decline, then the voters simply are likely to make some backlash and to vote politics who would want to deal with something. We have, for example, seen that during the first industrial revolutions, when there was the rise of inequality and lots of people lose jobs, then it made a rise of socialism policy and of socialist states, which mitigated all these problems. And we probably believe that if, for example, people would be losing jobs and if the corporations would be getting too much powerful, then simple people are likely to and people will be impacted by this. Then the people are simply likely to elect some government which would, for example, want to solve this by, for example, stopping the corporations from collecting these data and by breaking them up, by for example providing the unemployed people some UBI, because otherwise the voters simply would be unsatisfied and they would vote this government out and put there some other government. We can also see that in the status quo already the people don't trust these big tech companies which are actually collecting their data and misusing them because we can see that after the Cambridge Analytica, basically both the Democrats and both the Republicans want somehow to regulate the Facebook. So therefore, we believe that these mitigatory policies are really likely. And this is also, we believe that simply still the governments probably are likely to prevent one prevent people getting harmed and one prevent people from and therefore are likely to somehow regulate the policies that, for example, the AI, which can be designed as a weapon, is likely to not be accessible to public. Same as, for example, same as many other technologies, like for example, uranium or war drones are also not accessible to public because the governments are simply afraid to give these things to public, and therefore they are likely to ban it. Secondly, to the opening government about losing of the jobs. Firstly, we believe that only some of the. Firstly, we believe that many of these jobs actually won't be won't be lost. Why is it so? Because we believe that still, even if the AI would be much more efficient, still people want human interaction because people are social beings which feel good when they are interacting with other people. Therefore, even if AI doctor would be much more better than human doctor, you would still want to have around human doctor human doctor because you can talk because you people feel much more better when they are accompanied by other human. So therefore, actually, still there will be probably lots of jobs, especially for example in the caretaking in the industry, which would still be preserved. Secondly, we believe that it is okay if we in the future have less jobs because we in the developed countries have also really aging population. That in next 20 years we will have actually only few young people who would be able to work, and most of the population will be old, and therefore it is actually good that there will be AI which will go do most of the jobs so that the young people could focus on taking care of the people. And secondly, we believe that simply the companies probably would simply, if all people would be poor and without jobs, nobody would want to buy products from these companies, and therefore these companies probably still want to employ some people just in order for these people then to have some income to spend on. Secondly, let's move to my own extension, which is about economical growth, because we believe that economical growth is really because we believe that economical growth, what is it? Is simply when the economy is becoming more efficient, that you simply save more, you simply produce for less money, and therefore you can save more money and then invest them, which then generates more money. And we believe that you can have only like this economy becoming more efficient and therefore more better when you have more better only when you have innovation, when you have, for example, in organizational innovation, like for example you like invent better way how you can, for example, organize work and organize people. Secondly, when you have technological innovation, like for example when you have simply some machine which can do the human job much more quicker and much more better, this then creates the economical growth, that simply you have then more money to spend, which then creates more money. I can take now a POI quickly.
In the status quo, we have laws against dumping trash into the ocean, and companies still do it. But if one company messes this up and this code gets online, it is there forever, irreversibly.
Okay, but why? Simply, the government are quite likely to probably hire some hackers who would destroy this AI which is online, because they would want to, of course, create safety for the people. Now, why this economical growth is we believe that we can have the economical growth now only with AI, because we simply need another innovation which would make us to organize the human work much more better and create more money. And the only innovation which we right now have is the AI. And why is it good that we have economic which can help us create new technologies and also organize our work better? And why is it good? Good because we believe that right now we still need economical growth, because simply lots of people are still in poverty, especially in the developing countries and also some in developed countries. And only way how you can lift people out of poverty is simply to have economical growth, as it happened in the past during the 20th century, where almost like 6 billion people were lifted out of poverty only by the economical growth. So therefore, for all these reasons, please vote for the side of closing opposition. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, member of opposition, for those final remarks. Finally, to conclude the government side house's case in this debate specifically for CG, Govwood, please. Here. oppose opposition's case, CEO's case, and the debate as a whole. Upwith, please. Hear her.
All right, am I audible?
Yep, clear.
Okay, cool. I'll just set my timer and I'll start right away. Okay. Yeah. Well, the side of government cannot claim that that they wouldn't. That AI steals jobs and at the same time brings no benefits, because if AI steals jobs, it means that artificial intelligence has to be employed, and if it is employed, it means that it brings its benefits with it. So this is the first contradiction in today's debate. In my speech, I will bring up 3 points. Firstly, about unemployment. Secondly, to misuse. And thirdly, to the benefits that were brought by the side of opposition. So firstly, to unemployment. The side of government claimed that artificial intelligence is to be in hands of companies which are profit oriented. And therefore, they wouldn't employ people and rather employ artificial intelligence. But this statement is contradictory in itself. Why is that? For two reasons. Firstly, consumers are also employees. And this means that if people are not employed, therefore they don't have salary, therefore they don't have money. It means that companies lose profit because they don't have consumers that buy their products. So we think that this means that on the side of that, we think that with artificial intelligence it is not possible not to employ people, because therefore you wouldn't have consumers as company. The second reason is that if quite suddenly thousands of people lost their jobs, we believe because of companies that are selfish, that want just their profit and so on, it would anger a very large number of people. And that is not something desirable by companies, just for the fact that they want to be liked, and therefore they get profit because consumers buy their products. This is we can see that even in the status quo, when, for example, if some company is racist or sexist, they lose profit because they're not liked by general public, and that is not something desirable for them because of their profit incentives. But even if what the side of government tried to pursue us, and that is that people would lose the majority of their jobs, we believe that it kind of still is beneficial, and it kind of still is not. It wouldn't create an apocalypse, or it wouldn't be bad for the people that lost their jobs so much. Why is that? Firstly, we believe that there's a difference between automation and artificial intelligence, and it is that automation impacted only low skilled workers, and therefore workers that have low salary in majority of cases. But artificial intelligence would affect all people, would affect everyone, all people. And this means that if all people are affected, not only poor but also rich, we believe that it would create a greater pressure on not only companies themselves but also on government to do something about it. To, for example, put high taxation on artificial intelligence, or, for example, provide UBI. And therefore, we believe that people wouldn't be so badly off. The second reason why we believe that it kind of losing jobs could be beneficial or isn't so bad is for the fact that in many countries, especially in Western world, there's aging population. This means that there's a lot of elderly people, but not a lot of young people, and elderly people cannot work anymore, and young people cannot take on all the work that the elderly used to do. So we believe that there is a demand for artificial intelligence to fill in those jobs that cannot be filled in because there's not a big enough pool of workers. Now to the second question of today's debate, which is about misuse. So to that, we have brought a couple of reactions. Firstly, that technologies always come with regulations, and we believe that this, what the closing government replied to that was that they're just responding. They don't prevent bad behavior from companies. But we want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, yeah, it might be true that there's some misuse. Include like of all technology of all stuff, like there's always someone who doesn't follow the law, but the majority of people do follow the law. uh, we can see this even in normal public when the majority where the majority of people follow the law, and then there are criminals, but it is the minority. So firstly, we believe that the impact on the side of closing government is very small, as there would be very few people or very few companies that would go against the law, because there would be there would be very large punishment, there would be high fines, there would be those companies could also be broken up because the general public doesn't believe them in the status quo, and if they misused their power, there would be even like more decrease of belief in them. So that is the first thing. But the second thing is that we believe that artificial intelligence is actually good, because and cannot be misused by hackers, because government and big companies would now have AI to protect their artificial intelligence secret that wouldn't get to the public, as the majority of things that can be misused don't. For example, we have presented you uranium or war drones. Now to the benefits, and that is the third point that I would bring, and that is about firstly economic growth. So my first speaker brought you an argument about economic growth, in which he explained that with innovation also comes economic growth. And it means three things. Firstly, because companies have more money, because they have cheaper production, they can expand and therefore provide more jobs. And that is contingent on the unemployment job that I brought you. And that explains why there would be no loss of jobs. And secondly, the second point is that they make more money, and therefore more money can be taxed. Therefore, there can be higher social benefits, for example, for those people that lose their jobs or for people that are poor. And thirdly, uh, if companies have more money, they have more money to invest, which is very common, and therefore those money transfer to different fields, and thus it gives jobs to many other people, many other, for example, smaller companies, and it gives space to different innovations because they are now funded by this extra sum of money. We believe that for all those reasons, you should vote the side of opposition.
Great. Thank you very much, Opposition Whip, for those final remarks. Thank you very much, everyone, for what was a very riveting EFL Grand Finals debate. Congratulations once again. Feel free to ask any of us with the results after the results is announced in the closing ceremony later on. And good luck for every one of you. Thank you once again, and please leave the room.
Thank you.
Thank you for the debate.
Um, just like to ask before leaving, is it possible to get a feedback